Hi everyone, welcome to this week's NAOL review. I'm Albert, and I'm going to walk through 3 single-digit Q games. I got note from one of the players in this game that the opening was fairly hard to judge, especially the bottom left, so I'll focus a little more time on it. So the end result, if we fast forward, is black kind of got a wall and the white got some territory on the side. But in between, there's actually a few interesting things to note. So this is a pretty typical fight where we have some sort of side extension, our opponent invades in the middle. And the first thing I want to point out is that this move, it looks like a connection, basically. White wants to establish a connection on the second line if white feels a little bit under pressure. But I think we should be very careful about playing moves like this. The reason being, black doesn't actually have to do anything. All black needs to do is to play on the outside, and we can see that in this sort of double monkey jump, there are 2 cuts, A and B, and it's unclear whether white can really fix both cutting points in one move. So let's go back. So basically, oftentimes white will have to spin another move, and then black can keep Tanuki. And at some point, white will have to make sure there's no cut here. So in effect, white owes a move and a half in this region. And if we look at it, white is barely getting 5 points in these 2 moves. So white is basically playing dame moves on the second line, while black can profit on the outside. That's why with this type of move, unless your big dragon is in danger, it's not advisable to play. And the other thing is black can always cut off on one side, basically, something like this. Now, black wouldn't want to play right away because it's not very valuable, but it is a weakness that white has to be careful about. So it's a big liability. Okay, so having said that, I think white needs to escape out, because connecting back is not a very, very profitable way to play. So I think a normal way of playing like this is fine. And as soon as white can escape here, white can have stronger moves in this area, potentially trying to threaten to cut off black. And if white were to find a connection here, I think jumping would be the better approach, because white can potentially push cut here. So maybe black will have to block on the outside, and white will have a more efficient connection. So in the game, black chose to cut. I think it's premature. So the quick thing to note is this is similar to a double cut situation on the side. And the rule of thumb is basically you should capture whichever side your opponent cuts. In this case, this is exactly what white should do. So capturing one stone, black loses a little bit locally. And now at least the left-hand group will be completely safe for white. So black can separate white, but the problem is there weren't many points to begin with. So getting separated here is not a big deal. When black plays here, white can also just extend. Notice black still has a weakness. And white can wedge here in Sente, so basically there's no Hane Aji here. And then white can escape. This will be fine for white. I think if anything, black should aim to cut on this side. Right? If white still captures, then this separation will be a lot more severe. The problem now is maybe white can bump here and cut, so black is not quite strong enough on the outside to make cutting from here work. But if black were to get a few more moves here, then this cut will be more possible. For example, even in a shape like this, there's a ko-aji and a cut on the outside. So there's something for black to exploit later. The aji is very bad. I think ideally black should Tanuki and force white to make an inefficient move. Sometimes the best way to deal with an aji is to leave it alone and wait for your opponent to fix it, because they have to spend extra moves playing dame while you can profit. So I think maybe even just jumping here will be fine. Just wait for white to fix later. But of course, I think looking globally, sealing this side will be very big too. Yeah, and why miss a chance to kind of even the game by capturing this stone? Connecting on the first line is very painful. So I think this really set white back quite a bit because white is sticking to only the first line. Okay, so black made 2 exchanges. The first wedge might be okay, but the second wedge really loses a lot of points. Notice now the 2 stones on the left is really damaged. So I think exchanges like this can really hurt your territory if you play it too prematurely. So think about whether you need to play right away. If you just jump, would white really bump here? If not, then there's no need to play there right away. And same with this wedge. If black, let's say just, let's see where black play in the game. Yeah, let's say black just plays here. Would white do anything here? Or would this wedge no longer be sente? I think this wedge will always be sente, at least in the foreseeable future. So there's no reason to exchange that right away. And of course, this has the potential of shortening black's own liberty, reducing the black's own liberty. And potentially white can play the tiger's mouth. This will even reduce even more territory. Yeah, okay, so black, I think just simple jump is better if black really wants to play locally. And what black wants to aim to do is actually just push cut, because this can destroy the entire corner. The problem now is probably that there's a cut here. So if black can reinforce outside, for example, with the jump, then eventually white will have to fix the aji in the corner, because even moves like this could become really severe, because when black can potentially seal off this side. Yeah, so black extended here, but it's actually gote. White can ignore. The corner shape is still dead. I'm not super sure black's thought process here, because if you play a gote move within your opponent's territory, that can be really devastating, unless you're really gaining a lot in the squeeze or something. But in this case, black can really seal either side. So black would lose the earlier advantage from white's mistake. Yeah, but ultimately white is fixed, so this didn't turn out to be a problem. I think here extending is a slow move. Maybe black want to develop the bottom, but if so, I think just extending will be better. White shape here will always be a little awkward because of the Atari at c4. But if black just descend down, it's actually gote. If black Atari's here, white can just play the squeeze. Because white's entire group is very safe. The Atari at 2 is just a matter of maybe 10, 15 points. So it's not very urgent. Yeah, so probably around 10, 12 points. So there's some invasion here. I think this move is probably a little too close. White just needs to play along this line. If black tries to extend, white can just keep expanding the left side. Yeah, I think this is somewhat of an overplay. And here, it's kind of a decision point for black. Black decided to cap, but we see later in the game, black wasn't able to seal white. And now this stone at A is somewhat awkward because it does take away white's eye, but it still didn't prevent white from completely escaping. So in the alternative scenario, black can, let's say, profit on the right. And then white will keep jumping, and then black can play again. So this is something we should compare with. White's group is still not very safe, but compared to the game situation, black can play 2 moves on the right. So this type of move slows down white, as sometimes it works, but I think it's most effective when the immediate gain from like these moves is very apparent. But right now, even after all these exchanges, it's unclear what black can do on the right side. And it seems like it could be helping white just escape toward the center. So the other option that involves a little more reading is this Kosumi. Compared to the cap, this is definitely a better way to seal white. The only concern is potentially black will have their own weaknesses. For example, with the cutting points, with these cutting points. But this is something black can consider too. And somewhat in between those is this Kema. But again, I think white will look to exploit the connections, the weaknesses within these one space jump, some sort of wedge weakness. But if white gives black the Panuki, I think this is probably as good as black can expect. So black can profit in the center instead. I think white's losing move this game is fixing here. As mentioned earlier, this is just a small endgame. It's not even a very big endgame. And by fixing here, white is essentially passing at a crucial moment in the game where the center fight is really brewing. And if white really wants to play locally, wedging here would be the more aggressive move. Notice it gains 1 extra point here, and it creates a cutting point for black. So this is Sente. Black almost has to fix right away. Otherwise, there's a cut. Maybe black can sacrifice the 5 zone for the time being, but eventually, sooner or later, black has to fix. So white wouldn't lose a move fixing the corner. And now this move essentially just cedes the initiative to black. Yeah, so black fixes the cut. I think is acceptable. Although I think extending here will be most urgent, because right now it's unlikely for white to cut in this direction. So in this case, even if black just extends, white cannot establish a connection to the center group from here. Yeah, and black can even jump. So this puts pressure on the center group. So at this point, we see white spend a lot of moves in the center, only to maybe live in 2 eyes. And black didn't get much territory, but through getting this wall, now the upper side will become black's influence, and the right side is become very weak for white. So I think at this point, black already has a very strong position. Yeah, I think the last thing I'll point out about the life and death before white collapse is this move. There's some weaknesses in connection, but as long as white play the Kasumi, white should be able to live. Now, black needs to settle here, and then through this the fight, white should have time to at least save both groups. White wouldn't be comfortable, but at least the group will be alive. Yeah, unfortunately in the game for white, there's a cutting point here. Now, since I got a question about this shape earlier too, I'll point out that at this point, black should make a decision. Is black's goal really killing white, or to settle the group, or something else? Because Peep and Kosumi is just a Goten move. This is saying black's going for the whole group. And if this fails, it can be very risky. And the other thing is, if black already saw the cut here, then maybe black can just play right away. Or black can just try to settle this group first. The problem for white is white try to kill this group. It's not a very good way of just taking away the eyes. And of course, there's a cutting point issue here. So that basically game over. So to recap, I think the key point here is how to deal with this type of connection. I think the best way is to leave it alone, because your opponent is not getting a lot of value from it. And later, seeing that this move and this move is not super urgent, so black doesn't have to descend right away. And lastly, thinking about different ways of playing the cap, and of course the reading issues on the right. So with that, we'll move on to the second game. Oh, hey Joel. Yeah, if there are questions about the earlier game, I'll be happy to go back later. Okay, so this game, opening few corners is rather unremarkable. Here, I'll say once the proper follow-up after the attach is a double hane. So if you extend, it's just creating bad shape. Then we are not taking full advantage of the earlier move by attaching. So we can see white shape is somewhat folding. Okay, and here we can see cut is basically a sente move. So white can always play a sente kosumi, or maybe the cross cut here, to basically seal black off on the left. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why it's a little better for black to push again. Okay, so but those are Joseki issues. I think this is a directional issue. This move doesn't establish connection to the three stones on the top. So it's more of just an extension for the bottom left. But right now, looking at the whole board, the left side is actually the smallest. There's a very big move in the bottom. There's a very big move in the upper right corner. And of course, on the right side, there's potential invasion. I think if we ignore the corner, I mean, right now, the key move is just to play a sente move here and maybe to extend the bottom, or play on the right side. Those two will be the biggest areas. Right, black play here. This is another common mistake from Q players, I would say, is that when we make an extension on the side, we don't make it efficient enough. And right now, the only move is if you go all the way. If you're playing just a 3-space extension, oftentimes it makes your next move awkward. So for example, let's say white plays in the corner, next move black will play here. But at this point, because black already invested in K4, white is very happy to just bump. And now the shape is fixed in sente. White can do something else. Maybe jump, maybe turn, maybe extend on the side, upper side, or do something like clamp on the right. If black plays M3 right away, it's very likely white will still play bump or this move. These two will be similar. And black, in one move, black can basically get up to this line, versus if black has to play another move at K4. So this will just be a more efficient way to expand. Okay, so white played the turn. Normally, it's a pretty big move, but right now we can see that the bottom black framework is not very big, and white doesn't have a lot of influence on the left. So I would say this is inappropriate use of a common Joseki follow-up. We have to look at the situational, the specific situation here. So right now, neither side has a lot going on in the bottom left, so the turn is not urgent. On the other hand, because white made a monkey jump, a 2 extra space extension in the monkey jump at N17, the corner is wide open for black. So that's why whether it's playing a 3-3 or white fixing the corner, this will be the biggest move. I think beside the kick, white of course can consider invading or fixing the corner in the old-fashioned way. So as long as white plays in the upper right, I think that will be directionally correct. Yeah, and black made the same mistake. Usually, once white turns, you want to tenuki, because if you keep playing, you're just giving your opponent some beneficial exchanges. So the marginal utility of continuing is just keep decreasing. Yeah, and again, I think this finally gets mentioned. I mentioned, this is something I bring up every single week, is the point of reducing a territory. If you can do nothing, well, it's very simple. If you don't have to reduce, then just take a big point, or don't have to invade, then don't bother, because you're just creating a weak group. Right now, black doesn't really have much going on bottom left, so there's no reason white needs to invade or reduce right now. So this is just creating a floating zone in the center that may be attacked later. So of course, just take another big point. And locally, actually, it's very important to understand this conceptually. Invading here, or reducing, we're only involving points in the upper side. Like maybe we're talking about 10 points. at the expense of creating a weak group. Because right now, black's moyo has not connected here. It will be a different thing if this whole line is sealed. But right now, it's far from being sealed. So really, if white wants to play locally, all white needs to do is here. And maybe the most black can get is something like this. And even at this point, white doesn't really need to invade. Because if we look carefully, black is only getting 10 points in the center. And whatever black has here, black already had before playing e7. So black has spent here will be an whole move here, getting 10 points. While white has gotten at least 6 here in Sente, pretty much. And remember, white basically started out with a corner here, both corners. So it's okay for white to give black some points in the center. So basically, white does not need to invade here whatsoever. So reducing is a is a directional error. Okay, so now black turned. I think a lot of these games, most of the games today have a lot of opening learning points. Oftentimes when people turn, we are very afraid to give them this Atari follow-up. But right now, we have to look at the situation, the surrounding stones. White does not have much influence or potential on the left. There's almost no points here. You're starting out with almost no points. Even after black Atari, you still have almost no points. So the only thing white really needs to worry about is really the life and death. So if white can just make some Sente exchanges, fix the shape. So let's say when white plays here, like say black bumps. So now white's pretty safe. White can definitely tenuki. And even when black plays again, white can tenuki again. So in these moves, black only destroy about 10 points, while white tenuki twice to take a big point. So while normally e8 will be a vital stone, right now it's not important at all. So both players spend several moves in this area, but in reality, we need to focus either on the top right or saving the center stone. And notice because white invested in k6, now white has to spend more moves in the center, whether it's here or try to connect back or just jumping. But these moves will definitely not be as valuable as a regular big point in the top right or invading the right side. So that's what a directional error will cause. White will keep playing in the less important, less valuable areas. But I guess luckily for white, black keep playing on the left as well, which gives white more time to come back to the center. Okay, so after a lot of exchanges, white play on the right. I think the problem in this game is both players have a lot of broken shape. So I'm not sure why black wedge here. I'm assuming that has related to the ladder. But actually the ladder works for white because of the k6 stone. And it's important to note that at this point, actually the best move is not blocking here, but pushing here. Because white's goal is not really to save these two stones or these two stones. It's to break apart black's territory and maybe even put pressure on this group. So this is probably slightly harder to understand, but the goal here then is to put pressure, is maybe to sacrifice the center in order to kill the bottom right. So let's say in this situation, we have a trade like this. White would have gained way more because this is a lot bigger than this. Of course, this sequence may not be easy to see, but it's something to consider. Conceptually, white's goal is not to save the stone at Q11 and P11. The goal is to try to make Sabaki try to find value in this area. Okay, so now of course we need to find a ladder breaker, and in no situation is this move a good ladder breaker because it just I'm almost thinking it could be it looks like a misclick from escaping the ladder or something. It's kind of a bizarre move. Yeah, I'm having a hard time on trying to understand why black played there. So basically, after this exchange, the game just collapsed for black. Because white got a Panuki out of nowhere, essentially. And I think pushing here white was a little overzealous. The point here is not to kill the black group, is to strengthen white's end groups, and then hopefully find some support from the center stone. So jumping here is important. Even earlier, the AI was recommending this jump. The reason is very simple. Whenever we have a shape like this, there's always a cut. So it's something white has to worry about. At some point, it's always worth spending a move to fix the cutting point. That's why the AI keeps recommending this jump or extending here. Okay, but in the game, white did profit. I think extending is better just because of the Aji. And actually, white's problem in the game was white didn't tend to the Aji in the bottom well enough. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'll go to the point where black captured this group. I think both players here should work on the reading because we leave this whole shape unattended. And there are obvious, very obvious liberty shortage issues. So for example, even if this is fixed, black can cut here. And the K3, J3 stone will be captured because there's a liberty shortage. And knowing that, if white saw that liberty shortage, there's no reason why white would push here. If white just played away, this cut wouldn't actually exist because J3 reduced white's own liberty. So this is very important to know. And here is something I think even more bizarre. So black cut, it's good black finally found the weakness. White Atari wants and connected here, and black made the Atari. But white captured, and then when black Atari on the wrong side, white connected, only for the entire group to be captured again. I think especially this last move, it's a move that white really needs to reflect on, because I think as a 5Q player, we definitely should be able to see this. I would say even for maybe 15Q, a player should be able to see this. White should just play away to minimize damage. So it's always okay. We always blunder basically every game, but how we deal with it is very important. We should try to minimize losses and recollect ourselves. So I'm sure at this point white has figured out something is wrong. So it's important to figure out how to minimize cut losses, and move on. So back to the specific reading side. At this point, white made the Atari exchange first and then connected. And we can see that if white will try to connect here, Atari at Q4 doesn't actually matter. And in a lot of cases, this will reduce white's own liberty. So white's actually better off playing here. And then white can play away. The corner, for the time being, will be dead, but there's some Aji later. For endgame, white can attach here. And this only works without the Q4 exchange. So if black plays here, and then white can Atari. So black connects and white can play here. The capturing race favors white now. So black has to Hane, black can cut. And we all know, probably all know this Tetsuji. So notice black cannot play here now because then the capturing race will favor white. So black has to play here, and then white can save the 4 stones and gote. Black still profited a lot in the corner, but white saved this maybe 15, 10, 15, close to 15 point endgame in the corner. That's why it's better to sacrifice the corner than the side. So remember this Tetsuji, it only works without this Atari. So black was doing very poorly in the beginning because of the mistakes on the right. But at this point, black reversed because black captured more than 30 points in the bottom. But unfortunately, I think later there were more... black play a little bit too slow, which allowed white to eventually reverse the game. So I'll see what's the blunder here. So at this point, white connected, but white can jump in and threaten black's entire life and death. This whole group will be in trouble, the whole corner. But black already actually lost a lot of ground from earlier. So I think black really has to be careful. Yeah, so black lost the entire top. Yeah, there's no reason to push here. I think black can just connect. And of course, always look out for the life and death. And extending here has been the biggest move. So even capturing a big group, we cannot be too complacent. Hopefully black will learn this lesson. Okay, with that, for the sake of time, we'll go to the last game. Okay, are there other... Okay, interesting opening. Yeah, this is somewhat of an odd, I guess more unique opening, but it's actually still okay. It's important for black to keep playing because giving white the very complete connection is just too thick. Because with one move, white can play a Sente Hane connect. Black has to fix. So then white's entire wall will become very, very strong. So this is like a gote, but with a very strong Sente follow-up. And here, potentially black can cut, but white has this move. And it seems like the fight wouldn't favor black for the time being. So at least black can choose the clamp. Because if white pushes down, black can cut. And now this cut will be more severe. Yeah, so this will be roughly an even result. So in the game, white descended. It looks kind of Sente, but it leaks a very obvious weakness. So it's still better for white to just spend an extra move, fix the outside, and deny black the possibility of cutting. Okay, so black Tanuki'd, which was the first big mistake of the game, because it leaves the corner at risk. Black has to block or make a Sente cut first and then block. But unfortunately, white made the wrong kill move. The easy move is to turn. And then in the game, black played the monkey jump. I think there are two issues here. One is white did not consider the weaknesses on the outside by playing the monkey jump. Because at the very least, it leaves liberty shortage issues for black to exploit. And the second problem is that even locally, the monkey jump is incorrect. Well, locally, the best move is also still the turn. When killing the corner, basically, the big monkey jump is rarely the right move. Oftentimes, most of the time, we're thinking of the small jump that came out, especially in a shape like this. There's a similar shape, like like this one. And the correct move is still the Keima. Because if we play the monkey jump, you can give your opponent more forcing moves, and this can easily become a call. So this is a like a foundational skill that we should, the basics that we should really master. Right, and of course, black is able to live. Yeah, and at this point, we know that there's a ko left, but white doesn't have no ko threats at the moment. So it's important to save this possibility and play away. At the very least, at some point, black has to spend another move here. So by connecting here, we're subject ourselves to a weakness on the outside. And also, we just played, this is like a Gote 5-point move. And we're in the middle, they're starting the game. So white just took a very small move in the opening. That's why black suddenly 5 points ahead. And of course, neither side cared about the cutting problem. This cut is very obvious. And sometimes I think Q players see a cut, they don't play it right away because they think they can't kill anything right away. So there's no point. But actually just leaving a cut is very valuable. Because if you cut once and your opponent can't capture the cutting move, then you're basically creating Adri and Sente. So if you cut and your opponent can Atari, and with another move your opponent can just capture, Panuki you, then the cut is probably not worth it, because with one move your opponent can fix the cut as if you didn't cut in the first place. So if that sounds confusing, I'll repeat it. So if black plays away, white can fix this cut completely in one move. So white's in one move here, and now there's absolutely no problem. But if black cut and then white responds, let's say that this is the AI's top choice move, and then black plays away. And right now, there's no way for white to completely eliminate the Aji. If white Atari here, there's still a ladder breaker. If white try to net here, this doesn't work right away. So now there's no way for white to eliminate the Aji. So black has left some Aji in Sente. In a slightly different shape. So let's say, right, in a very clear way. Like let's say the shape is like this, and then you cut, and your opponent can just ladder you. In one move, your opponent can cleanly capture you, whether it's here or let's say here. So there's no point of cutting here, in this case. And the other thing to watch out for is whether your cut exchange and your opponent's fix will somehow give your opponent value. In this case, because white is pretty surrounded on the outside, giving white a jump at 2 is not really a big deal. And also, white has another weakness at c5. So the cut at f4 is pretty much a no-brainer. So that the other option, a similar shape, okay, that we consider is this one. Yeah. So oftentimes we are debating whether to cut, and you might think, oh, this is also creating Aji for your opponent. And now even if you Tenuki, your opponent can completely capture these 2 stones. But you still don't see a lot of strong players cutting without a very strong follow-up. And this is because cutting and whichever move white plays, you're giving your opponent value. And now the cut is more or less could potentially become a dame. So this situation will be slightly different from the game. You still see the cut very often, but it's more often in the context of fighting, not necessarily just to leave some Aji. So this is more of an attacking oriented move. Because in the case of like these 2 moves dying, blacks is suffering a small loss in territory. Versus in the game, there's almost no risk involved. No risk involved by cutting here. Yeah, so that's why the whole game really surrounds the bottom left. Whoever can fix a cut or black to cut first, that side will have a slight edge. So here black tries to attack locally, but it's kind of like just forcing white to live. So white can just connect, and black will probably seal, and white can live very easily here. So it's unclear really what black is getting besides potentially sealing the outside, but this is losing a lot of points in the top. Yeah, and white made a small mistake by not answering that correctly. I think now is another time to maybe pause and think about our goals when in attacking. So this move, I'm not sure what white was considering, but I'll go through the thought process. So right now, black has some potential influence on the right side. White has one weak group and black has one weak group. And white has some potential on the left. I'm assuming white is not super aware of the severeness of this cut for the time being. So I'm just talking about the thought process here. White can first think about reducing black's territory, maybe something like this. Or try to take away black's base, while maybe saving some sort of connection. I think turning here either means white is trying to settle the group or trying to severely attack black's two stones. And so much so that white is chasing black towards white's own territory. This type of move works when we're attacking to profit sometimes, but it also risks basically chasing your opponent into your own territory. So if black somehow lives here, then white's territory is all gone. So white has to be careful. Sometimes we do this so we can get a forcing move to fix our weakness. So for example, right now at this point, maybe white fixes this cut, and then black has to play another move, and then white can keep attacking. So now white's shape is fine, but black is still under attack. So if white has a plan like this in mind, then I think the move at m7 will be okay. But if this is more of a blind attack to just chase black and see what happens, then it will be risky. Because this is not the best move to strengthen white's group. Of course, we see there is some sort of a cut aji here. So if white's worried about the group at 03, white needs to just fix that directly. Maybe something like that. Or at the very least, peeping here will be helpful. And then see what white want to do. If white's worried about the influence put by black's moyo, then white should just play the jump right away. Okay, so here black tried to find some sabaki move, and finally white's able to fix. So ultimately, white got to fix here. Black got a little bit of points, but it's not worth it because white gained a pretty strong wall. Black's still doing well in the game, but it's because the earlier advantage was still holding. Okay, so now there's some big moves. Let's ignore the top because both players are playing the bottom. In here locally, white Atari, and then because white saw this first line Hane, I think it's good reading. But we should consider the whole picture. Right now, white's basically caught black's mistake. I think black maybe didn't see this connection. Otherwise, there's no reason to Atari here. I think white should either Atari first or play the Hane directly. Because the key here is not to capture these two stones, is to capture this so that the whole wall will become complete. If black extends here, there's no way white will be happy just capturing these two stones. I think white will try to go for the whole group. So knowing that, there's no reason to Atari make this exchange prematurely. So then black can still potentially jump out. If we don't make that exchange, I think it'll be pretty difficult for black to save the J4 stone right now. And sometimes the even greedier move is to play here. And if you're a little bit stronger, you will see this sort of approach. This is basically making your opponent heavy. It's a double-edged sword because it could potentially entail a loss if you cannot capture this. but it's a move worth considering. Right now, it might still be a little too risky because I think black can probably escape like this, but it's a move that we should consider, at least. Especially now we know that white is slightly behind. So when you're behind, you want to play a bit more aggressively. I think moves like this should be in your toolbox. Okay, so why make this Atari? I'll make an extension. So I think here, this is important. White is trying to break up towards the center, and black is trying to fix this cut. Of course, there are two obvious ways, but in this case, connecting here is a lot better because it's sente and it directly threatens the follow-up of this cut. So the approach is you want to play a move that forces your opponent to go back. In this case, connecting here forces white to reinforce. Even though it feels a little slow, but it's actually the more proactive move. And for the sake of time, I'll just skip to the end and see if there is a notable shape. Yeah, looks like black's group died here. Oh, and the upper left also died. Yeah, so the problem was this getting cut off. I think maybe black didn't see the Atari, that now the upper left is just got captured. Had black just connected here, this would still be a very balanced game. There's definitely still some Aji, but white is also under a lot of pressure playing like this because black can Atari twice in sente and then cut. White's group is also not alive. It is hard. Sometimes at this point we're in Byoyomi and we can make blunders. But I think if we zoom out a little bit, black's problem was playing too many moves in the bottom. At this point, we can see, similar to the last game, does black need to consider whether he really needs to save these two stones? If black just try to fix his other weaknesses first, and maybe expand toward the center, it looks like black would make about as much as white in the center. So in that case, there's really no need of saving the J4 stone, especially because white is alive on both ends. So it would just be a matter of points. And if you've been following by now, you know that counting points is relatively straightforward. You can just see which side is bigger and where value is. It doesn't involve as much reading, and it's actually the easier way to play. If you can just have enough value, make sure every group is alive, then you will be ahead without trying to take too much risk. And I think the game move by jumping here was taking a lot of risk for not a lot of benefit. Yeah, so of course, like the specific moves that each player played can be a little better. But directionally, white is already creating a strong center, which is setting up to for a dual attack on the top left and the center. And that ultimately allowed white to make a comeback and capture the entire group, actually. With that, I'm going to wrap the review for this game, and if there's any questions, I can go back to the previous two games as well. Yeah, if not, I'm happy to just end the review for this week here too. Yeah, thank you all for coming to the review or watching the video, and I wish you the best of luck in the remaining season.